Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the British-Luxembourg Society. We are very pleased this evening to have our speaker, Monsieur le Président des Chambre des Députés, Monsieur Etgen, and also Monsieur le Secretary General of the Chambre des Députés, Monsieur Sheikh. Thank you very much for coming to see us this evening. And thank you very much to our Britannic Majesty's Ambassador, Ms. Fleur Thomas. Thank you for hosting us this evening. It was very kind of you. On this lovely late summer's evening, we have an Indian summer, I believe. Perhaps I should just let you start, and then afterwards I could give a few words about the British-Luxembourg Society. Get going, I think. Would you like to?
Okay. Excellency, Mrs. Ambassador, Mrs. Fleur Thomas, Madam President of the British Luxembourg Society, Mrs. Louise Benjamin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome particularly Mr. Guy Dokendorf, my former teacher. It's a great honor for me to address you all on behalf of the Chamber of Deputies. I'm more than pleased to open this evening's talk on the Chamber as a public institution and its role in the democracy of a country throughout history. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic put a strain on our democratic values and principles. As a national parliament, the Luxembourg Chamber of Deputies stands as a bulwark against every potential threat that may adversely affect our common values. Since the very beginning of the sanitary crisis, the Chamber was fully aware of this possible risk. Since the beginning, the legislator was entirely associated with the pandemic management and its implications. We were, and still are, intensively involved to COVID-19 to discuss every health measures appropriately within the Chamber's committees and plenaries. Indeed, since the end of state of crisis in June last year, the government could not act by decrees anymore. On the contrary, the sanitary measures being adopted on average every 3 to 4 weeks, the parliamentary work was far from idle. Over 50 draft legislation on issues concerning the coronavirus have been deliberated and passed in the premises of the Parliament, while we were also pursuing our traditional parliamentary work. Not a single text left the Chamber the same way as it entered, meaning without being amended by its members. The Parliament was informed even during the state of crisis, which lasted 3 months. Once a week, the government came together with the Chamber Standing Committee and the Conference of Presidents to discuss at the highest level every measure to be taken. In this way, the Chamber of Deputies became the main stage for political debates on and also for taking action against COVID. National parliaments should embody representative democracy, and I can proudly say that this duty was solidly fulfilled. Even in a state of emergency, democracy must not suffer in the slightest. For Parliament, the ability to be at the heart of the decision-making process is critical. Furthermore, we are now scrutinizing the effects of the crisis in order to have an array of suitable tools for the future, for instance, digital tools. The sanitary crisis indeed had an impact at all levels of the parliamentary work, and physical meetings were impossible to be held. Hence, the use of video conferences. We were compelled to react swiftly. Digitalization was to go to reside, to carry on the parliamentary work on the one hand, but also to maintain a sturdy citizens' dialogue on the other. The lawmaking process, the usefulness of digitizing our traditional methods of functioning has become invaluable. To be functional, the statutory committee meetings were organized virtually. By doing so, the exchanges with the government could take place regularly, and by extension, the parliamentary scrutiny was maintained. Digitalization plays a considerable part in any democratic regime, not only in matters of internal parliamentary work, but also in the dialogue with the citizens. Considering the burgeoning popularity of online petitions, the Chamber designed a new website in the midst of the pandemic, a website specifically dedicated to petitions underlining the importance of keeping up dialogue with citizens. Moreover, a more welcoming and user-friendly website for the Parliament is much anticipated, and we are currently developing tools of artificial intelligence that will render the parliamentary work even more approachable by a broader public. In addition, new opportunities to participate and to have a say in the parliamentary process will be introduced with the constitutional review that is in progress and where the Chamber has the lead. Ladies and gentlemen, our first constitutional text goes back to 1841. With this fundamental text, William II, King of the Netherlands, who was at the same time Grand Duke of Luxembourg, introduced an indirect census voting which essentially empowered the monarchy. The earliest indications of democratization were felt during the revolutions of 1848. The so-called Spring of the Nations, also called People's Spring, induced a more liberal and democratic constitution with a separation of powers. The citizens demanding an independent national state were rewarded by obtaining fundamental rights subjected to a constitutional monarchy. In 1856, William III decided to run a rather authoritarian regime and imposed a new fundamental law. The Chamber was dissolved, the census was raised, the sovereignty of the monarchy was re-established. 1 year after the Treaty of London, 1867, a new constitution was needed. The Assembly of the States was renamed Chamber of Deputies, and the census was lowered in order to gain a greater electorate. We shall not forget that at that time, going to the ballot box was a political right reserved to a minority of well-heeled men. The majority of the population, meaning a great majority of men and women in general, was for a long time excluded from this fight. One cannot evoke voting rights without mentioning the year 1919. Indeed, 1919 was a turning point in the parliamentary history. Luxembourg was among the front runners in introducing universal suffrage and female voting rights. To commemorate the 100th anniversary of the universal suffrage, the Chamber organized 2 years ago an exhibition in the National Museum of History and Art retracing the history of legislative elections. 1919 captures nevertheless the twofold significance. It not only meant the end of census voting, but also instigated a more direct practice of democracy. As a matter of fact, on the 28th of September 1919, a double referendum was held asking the citizens about the future economic orientation of the country, as well the maintaining of the reigning dynasty. Referenda may increase citizens' democratic participation, but can simultaneously be dreaded tools for government. As a matter of fact, when State Minister Joseph Bash announced the referendum in 1937, requesting the people's position on the question of banning the Communist Party, he did not expect that the population might have a different point of view than his one, with 50.68%, a very slight majority rejected the draft legislation. That may also be a reason why we had to wait 66 years after the referendum on the so-called Muzzle Law before the citizens were called upon again to express their opinion in 2003 on the question whether or not they were in favor of a treaty defining the constitution for the European Union. During the last constitutional referendum of 2015, the population firmly rejected the ideas of introducing a limitation of political mandates, the optional voting right for people of 16 years of age, and the non-mandatory voting right for foreigners during legislative elections. The currently ongoing constitutional review foresees new modalities for the holding of a referendum based upon a case-by-case assessment of the legislator. By doing so, the Chamber will be able to seek the participation of residents without voting rights so that foreigners might be permitted to share their opinion. Parliament took up the challenge of a complete overhaul of the Constitution. So far, it meant amending, completing, updating, and reinforcing our fundamental text. The process was very quick and efficient. So far, it only took us 18 years and counting. I believe the extended debate to be an acknowledgement and an indication of seriousness attached by the legislative power to the Constitution. This year, with the fourth and final chapter dedicated to the Chamber of Deputies and the State Council, the parliamentary work is now slowly but steadily getting closer to the finishing line. The reviewed Constitution will overall lead to a strengthening of the parliamentary scrutiny role. Likewise, the political opposition will benefit from intensified monitoring opportunities. Such scrutiny committee will become claimable if requested by only 1/3 of the MPs. Parliament's autonomy will be reinforced and the self-management in matters of internal organization will be enshrined in the Constitution. In addition, the parliamentarians will have the possibility to be advised by the State Council on any other questions. The new fundamental text will also be aspiring to an enhanced citizens' participation with the introduction of a popular initiative. Direct democracy will be achievable if 125 voters decide to table a draft law under the condition of being supported by 12,500 voters. Recently, another step was taken to enhance democracy. A new draft legislation has been tabled regarding the voting right for foreigners during municipal elections. Once passed, the 5 years residence obligation will no longer be required. The pandemic also reiterated the discussions around the publicity of committee meetings. For proponents of publicity accessible committees advocate to render parliamentary work yet more transparent. This will, however, be a long discussion, just as the one on the holding of multiple offices, where the future constitution opens for the possibility of change without, however, changing anything. Transparency remains one of the highest standards any parliament should strive for. We deem the rule of law to be the utmost importance in maintaining a qualitative and efficient democracy. Part of an efficient democracy is recognizing the flaws and fallacies that our separation of powers inherits and simultaneously work on strengthening them. Thus, by aligning with European standards, the establishment of a National Council of Justice will reinforce the independence of judiciary authorities as well the administration of justice. Furthermore, we believe in the power the paperless justice system holds. In times of global health crisis, where we have been challenged to keep physical contact to a bare minimum, it became apparent how fragile an undigitalized justice system still is. Hence, implementing a long-term strategy meant to ease these changes will be one of the priorities for coming years. Furthermore, we are aware of the need to continue our fight to prevent corruption, although we do foster some clear rules which aim to prevent the potential conflict of interest and revolving doors. We are aware that there are loopholes that our existing codes cannot prevent. But not later than last week, the Chamber voted new rules controlling a set of declarations of members of Parliament. Moreover, we are working on taking efficient steps to prevent lobbyism, while we have strong regulations controlling the financing of political parties. Freedom of speech is an integral part of our Constitution. Thus, we believe in a strengthened independence and effectiveness of the media. In times of a pandemic, especially the media, the fall of our democracy experience severe setbacks. We have implemented several regulations and legislations to support it. Recently, a legislative act was adopted in order to modernize media support, which aims to be more inclusive and suitable for both traditional and online media. To promote more media pluralism and diversity of information producers, journalists benefit from a legal basis which intends to ensure their protection. Another important step the Parliament has taken to foster the rule of law, not only nationally, but also beyond the borders, was to actively participate in election observation missions within the scope of the European Union and the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. Over the last year, MPs were sent to USA, Albania, to Moldova, and to Armenia. These only to name a few. Lastly, the Parliament has decided to implement more checks and balances for itself by adopting its own group of scientific experts supposed to advise the members of Parliament on any topic. So, while we try to keep the Parliament in shape and improve its effectiveness as much as we can, we also need to make sure that the Parliament is as legitimate as it can be, first by engaging with its raison d'etre, representing the people. The crucial question is, how can we ensure that everyone feels heard and represented in a democracy? It's simple. We need to bring its concept closer to people. As we know, the European Union has experienced some setbacks due to the pandemic. Every so often, citizens do lose trust in the European Union. As you all know, sometimes a whole country loses its trust in the European Union. But what the European Union remains good at is taking small steps and being resilient. Resilient in pursuing its plans for the future and diligent in realizing what citizens need, namely more dialogue. This now also means dialogue and cooperation with the United Kingdom. I know that the past few years have been difficult in this respect, but I want you to know that despite of all difficult moments and despite of all consequences, I'm convinced that the European Union and the United Kingdom, as well as Luxembourg and the United Kingdom, will remain much closer than some might think or want. I want you to know that in Luxembourg, we look up to the United Kingdom. The mere fact that we are together here tonight is proof enough. I look up to the United Kingdom, not only because of your history, economy, and culture, not only because of democracy can be messy sometimes. We saw that at Westminster during the Brexit negotiations. We also saw a very peculiar speaker with a wonderful, strong voice, as well as a strong will for order. And during that time, we saw a very engaged ambassador, John Marshall, your predecessor, Mrs. Ambassador, with a very difficult task to passionately explain the British point of view on Brexit, probably one of the most pro-European countries that there is. I do have respect for the United Kingdom's will to leave the European Union, but we love you so much that the idea of seeing you leave us was a bit difficult to accept. The European Union can be messy. Democracy can be messy. Things got a bit messy at Westminster at times. But during all that time, from my parliamentarian point of view, I saw a strong democracy at work in the United Kingdom. I saw people standing up for their ideas. I saw a cultural freedom and liberty. I saw strong pluralistic institutions, strong institutions for strong ideas. I saw what has been holding our people together in times of war and crisis. And I therefore always felt that whatever the deal we would get, our fundamental values will remain the same. This is also why I'm looking forward to work with you, Mrs. Ambassador. Keeping our fundamental values together in Luxembourg and beyond, this is also what the Chamber of Deputies stands for. And, as you know, Luxembourg is still member of the European Union. For a small country, being part of an international or European organization gives us a voice. It helps us to get heard in a noisy world. We live in times of many challenges, but we also live in times of great resilience. As an institution, the Chamber aims to be an actor of change. This is why, for instance, the Chamber of Deputies now means to play an active role during the conference on the future of Europe that has been launched at a pivotal moment with the mindset that the future of the European Union lies in citizens' dialogue. This is also why it is a main priority for my parliament to plan several activities in the framework of the conference on the future of Europe. We believe that this conference can provide a forum to make sure that citizens feel heard and understood. Democracy is not a simple concept to grasp. It is not something that is set in stone. It is constantly evolving and growing with its imperfections and requires a lot of adaptations. Basically, this is what the Chamber is going to do. Over the next few months, we will not debate on Europe. We won't try to explain Europe to the people. On the contrary, we are going to listen. We are going to reach out and ask what people living in Luxembourg have to say about Europe. And subsequently, we are going to draw lessons from this for ourselves, for the Chamber, and take the ideas together to Brussels. In other words, with regard to the changes and challenges we are facing, we need to consider new models of adaptive and participatory democracy by putting the citizens at the heart of our dialogue. This actually gives me hope for the European Union. Now, and this gives me even more hope, to bring democracy closer to you, dear members of the British-Luxembourg Society, the Chamber of Deputies warmly invites you to come and visit us. Guided tours are planned on the 30th of September and 7th of October. The Parliament must remain an open house, especially during these challenging times. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for having me here tonight, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments. I will do my best to respond to them. Thank you for your attention.
You want to have a question?
My question is more about, I respect very much.
Do you want to ask the question here so that we can see your video on the YouTube?
I don't hate for that. I suppose this is a question you might expect from a Brit. We respect very much the democracy in Luxembourg, and we see it in action. how strong do you feel the connection is between members of the European Parliament and the population of Europe? Is that a difficult question, or does it come outside the ambit of your competence?
The subject of this evening was that how democracy is in Luxembourg. And I think that the crisis has shown to us that democracy is very important. Therefore, I began my speech this evening in saying what we have done during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, the role of the Chamber of Deputies has been strengthened, because in Luxembourg, all the measures have been taken by the Parliament. All the measures have not been taken by decrees, and therefore people accepted the measures, because the debate about the measures have been taken inside the Chamber of Deputies and not in the streets by all these manifestations in other countries, where 10,000s of people demonstrated every Saturday against the measures. And therefore, I think that democracy, the model of democracy, the role of the Luxembourgish Parliament has been strengthened during the pandemic. You compare now, if you have the same democratic feeling, the same esprit democratic, democratic spirit in the European Parliament. The European Parliament is not in such a decision process like the national parliaments is, and therefore it's very difficult to compare the role, the results of a good functioning democracy in both, because people are not immediately concerned. Before coming national politicians, I was a councillor in my home time. First of all, councillor, then I was the mayor, and there I already, but it is very important to be very close to the citizens. Therefore, also my plaidoyer that it's very important to listen to the people, and the European Union has become greater and greater because of the different enlargements, and they have forgotten to listen to the people, and therefore now the conference of the future of Europe is clear that Europe must be more closer to the citizens. European policy is not making in Strasbourg, it's not making in Brussels. European policy is not making in the European Parliament, it's not making in institutions, but European policy is making by very engaged citizens living in all our villages, in all our towns, who are living on this side of the borders and on the other sides on the border. That's the result of traditions, that's the result of common culture there. And therefore, it's very important to respect the values for those European policy stands for.
Thank you very much. I couldn't have hoped for a better answer. Thank you.
Was that always the YouTube? Yes, that always the YouTube.
My question concerns increasing digitalization.
Yes.
And I'm a little bit concerned and would like to hear your comments. We see more and more that particularly governments can have a very direct contact with citizens and a direct response. And I'm a little bit concerned that that tends to bypass the members of parliament, the deputies. So that where we have a representative system, our representatives who are not actually in the majority, in the minority party, they are a little bit being squeezed out of the system because of direct contact between government, institutions and the citizens, which in one sense is positive, but I'm concerned about the other side. I'd like to have your comments on that.
Thank you very much for this question. I think that digitalization plays a very important role in democracy. We have seen that also during this pandemic. Digitalization helps us to be closer to our citizens, helps us to give more information to our citizens, help us that the citizens can communicate with the administration, and helps us to communicate with parliamentarians. I saw that during all this time there are several instruments of digitalization who helped us to be more effective and to be more. It's very important that digitalization is ameliorated. Consequently, we have to regulate it. That's very important. Politicians, because that it is used as what it stands for. That's, I think, very important, nevertheless. But I think that is a very important tool in our daily work. Because I want to give the word to my General Secretary. He is the expert to that. Digitalization has to be a main priority for the parliaments for the next years.
Thank you. I'm very nervous now. Thank you. On a more technical level, what I might maybe underline is that, for instance, during the state of emergency in last year and ever since, the government never went out to the press before informing the parliament about new measures. So regarding to your question, if there is a way for government to circumvent the parliament, it was not the case. And the parliament was always systematically informed. Sometimes there was a temptation by the government not to do it, and then there were always parliamentarians who reminded, especially Mr. President, reminded the government that this was not the way to go. And and we also had a meeting with the press during the state of crisis on a state of emergency, exactly on this question, because they also found this problem. So we were actively working on this problem, which we also saw. And generally, digitalization for us is a way to at Parliament to get closer to people, as this was just underlined. We have we're putting up a new website. We launched our petition website. We're trying not to leak too much information most of the time, and this is also a way to bring us bring the Parliament closer to the people, and where maybe the European Parliament is very far away, and in Brussels and Strasbourg, and also in Luxembourg. We're trying to compensate this by involving citizens in European debates, also with digital tools, by going to see them, but also with digital tools where we also use the European platform to do this. So, and we're using, or we're trying to use, this is a long-term process, artificial intelligence in order to create a program, a speech-to-text program, from where we can translate not the language, but what is said into something written much more quickly than we can do it now, because this does not exist for Luxembourgish. It exists for many languages, of course, but not yet for Luxembourgish. So we're trying to take the lead as Parliament on this, and to do something to develop a program which would be put at the disposal of everybody afterwards as well, once we have it. But this is really a long time project. Thank you.
Louise? May I go on a little bit?
Would you like to?
No, I prefer to remain seated. One of the issues which seems to me as important as the progress made by digitization is the following. I believe that for the last 10 years, it has become more and more difficult for the people who govern us to make opinions, because opinion is very often made now on the social media by influencers, by anonymous people who very often don't have a conscience or don't want to have a conscience on what they are doing. The government may have been extremely well advised, have taken all the important input to make a decision, as Mr. Chairman, you say, during the whole pandemic. It takes 10 minutes after the decision has been made, and part of the social media will have crushed the decision, will have shaken the trust people have or had in their politicians, in governments, in parliamentarians. And that's, for me, a real issue. How shouldn't we try to analyze how all these influencers are being paid for? There's a very simple argument. You know the society L'Oréal, which has for years been paying young people aged 13 and more with the consent of their parents. If they advertise in their YouTubes and their Instagrams the products of these families, they are being paid. I believe it was sold at 1,300 euros. This is just commercial. And I believe it's much more difficult. I think the first is to.
Please, could you just repeat the question just in summary? So please, can you just repeat the questions for the YouTube channelists here? So
the question was about the potentially negative consequence of social media on politics and maybe also parliamentary politics.
I think that you have you are right, because the social media influences which social media takes on political decisions is very great. Therefore, it's very important, and it is in the hands of parliamentarians. They have to regulate the use of the social media, and therefore we have to have. We must have strong regulations in using social media, also concerning the hate speeches. The Chamber of Deputies will have an interpellation about hate speeches in Parliament. It's very important subject for the next few years. We have to have strong regulations.
Well, a very warm thank you for your talk this evening and for answering everybody's questions so such a friendly manner, and for also your appreciation of the UK. I've been living in Luxembourg for nearly 20 years, and I know that Luxembourgers love the UK, but it's always nice to hear it again. So thank you. It would also be nice, it's nothing to do with you, but it would be very nice if British people were allowed in as well. Chinese are allowed, Americans. It would be wonderful if when British people can come back to enjoy Luxembourg. And because the British-Luxembourg Society strives to maintain this deep bond of friendship between Luxembourg and the UK, and at the moment it's digital, which actually works well for the moment. There's lots of family and friends meetings on Zoom at the moment. But a little bit more about the society. It's our 75th anniversary next year. And so we do hope that anybody in the room who's not yet a member can join us before next year. We will have a Winston Churchill Memorial Lecture. Again, this year we had Lord Patton, Chris Patton. Thank you to David Clark for finding us our speaker this year. And we hope to have a number of gala events and hopefully a visit to the Conseil d'État, thank you to you, in the coming weeks. And also we have a joint event with the Oxford, Cambridge and Cambridge Societies, and also with the Conférence Saint-Yves, and that will be the poet Sir Michael Edwards, and he's the only British member of the Académie Française. Is that correct? So he will be talking about poetry, thinking in poetry. So please do join us for that. And anyway, a very big thank you again to British Ambassador for hosting us. Thank you for coming, and please do enjoy the drinks and canapes upstairs. Thank you.
Words of friendship between Great Britain and Luxembourg. It was a great honor for us to be here this night.
Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
for coming. Really kind of you. Thank you.